postgraduate education. They think that the management education is going to take them to a good job. I think this system also gradually changed. So, but we don't want to discourage these students coming into this institute. But what we are trying to do is to introduce another level of training where we pick up serving executives who have already got a minimum. I think we are trying to fix a minimum of 6 to 7 years. Bring them up on a 1-year training course. And this, for the first time, I think we are getting the IIT Kanpur and IIM Calcutta and IIT Madras join together and have a along with the industry, combined program of training of business leaders for 1 year. So starting from the business leader, I told you about the plumber and the electrician. All along the line, we feel there's a distortion that's taking place. And I think this is what we are trying to correct. They have talked about R&D expenditure. Yes, unfortunately, when the liberalized policy was announced in 1991, there were certain expectations that India will step up its own research and developmental activities. And but on the other hand, the R&D expenditure now is even lower than that of what it was in the last decade. This is again causing concern. I think there are enough statistics available where other countries are spending a lot more money on research and development. This is again an imbalance which the NMCC is trying to correct. And I believe that I have answered, I think, given this question that where the growth seemed to be centered on individuals. I was talking about that advanced center for business leadership training is also being taken up. But in effect, I think all these issues which we are talking of, I think we have at least flagged. One of the things which have been taken up immediately for a detailed study is on skill development and how to develop our own human resources. After all, if we all believe that India's strength is its people, I think we must do everything possible to see that those people are properly trained, properly motivated, properly given opportunities to develop their skills. Thank you.
Dr. Krishnamurthy, Ambassador Rajan and friends, it is my pleasure now to conclude this highly important function of this evening. I'm sure all of you enjoyed and learned as much as I did. There are certain points on which Dr. Krishnamurthy laid emphasis, which I would also like to strongly concur with at this particular juncture. One is his point that India's strength is her people. Very often we lament the fact that we've got too many people. But I have always believed, and for a long time, that India's great strength is her people. And our people, where they've had the opportunity, they have been able to demonstrate why we should consider them our greatest strength. So the key question there is that they must be provided with that opportunity. And as Dr. Krishnamurthy pointed out, they need to be trained in the skills which are inherent in them, but which are not being utilized or have not been utilized to their greatest maximum potential. But whenever they have been so utilized, maybe by others in other countries, they have demonstrated their great superiority in this regard. The other point, of course, which I would strongly concur with, is the ramifications of the concept of globalization. It is not only an economic concept. If it were only an economic concept, it could be seen as an offshoot of colonialism. But it is not that. It is a concept which goes much beyond it. And our own strength lies in perceiving it as a concept which goes much beyond that, into the culture, into the social spheres. Because those are areas where we have our greatest strengths. Those are areas where India shows the way. Our country has been working on this concept of living together, building together, learning from each other, For many, many years, this is a new concept in the world of globalization. For us, it is an old concept in which we have excelled. Thank you very much, Dr. Krishnamurthy, for pointing out the great successes in the path that we have chosen. I think we should also answer one of the questions that was raised. You have pointed out successfully that if the economic policy followed earlier, which was a policy of nationalization, which the government taking on more and more, was necessary for its time. But that has laid the foundation for the liberalization which has started occurring since the early 90s and which has now reached a considerable extent and is going further. And the great successes that we have achieved as a result of these policies were also brought out. The great dangers, the great hazards have also been brought out. And I think it's important for young people like yourselves as you go out and venture into the world, because while we may relish the successes, while we may look forward to the opportunities, it is important that we do not forget that there are hazards, there are dangers, and to keep our country, our economy on an even keel, we need, as pointed out, we need leaders and icons like Dr. Krishnamurthy, who will tell us where we are succeeding, but will also point out the hazards. And I believe, of course, that with every positive development, there will also be a negative aspect, and the success of that positive development will depend on how we address and set aside the negative concepts. So thank you very much, Doctor, for your address. And thank you very much for having me here to share this. Thank you.
I would also like to join Mr. Habibullah in thanking Dr. Krishnamurthy on your behalf, really, for an extremely thought-provoking talk. Many issues, I think, would be in our minds, which we did not have the time really to discuss in greater detail. But I hope that Dr. Krishnamurthy will be good enough to spare more of his time in the months and years to come, because this subject really is of very, very great importance to all of us. I also want to thank Mr. Habibullah for his presence here and for his very lucid and very thought-provoking concluding remarks. May I request Mrs. Malvika Rai to express our appreciation in a token sort of way to both Dr. Krishnamurthy and Mr. Habibullah. Now I would like to request all of you to please join us for a cup of tea outside. Thank you.
Students are requested to please leave from the back gate.